Welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy group, and we're on uh, Stephenson's textbook in the senior text, and we're on principle number 6, page 239, and principle number 6, the principle of time. So we've got our crew on here, and I'm going to start reading. How's that sound for everybody? So, Article 314, the principle of time, principle number 6. There is no process which does not require time. Basic principle, right? Since action of matter implies a procession of events, a continuity, naturally time enters into a triunity as an element. Time is an element necessary to the bond between intelligence and matter. That's just interesting. Force is a word implying action. Action is a process. Action implies one event after another. I just want to talk about that. Time being the element and how important that is everything takes time, from an embryo to, to grow and, so forth. All right. One event after another, forming a series implies time. No happening, even though it only takes a moment, but happens in a unit of time or a fraction of a unit of time. How important is that in chiropractic? And why is it one of the 33 principles? What do you guys think?
Well, what comes to mind is in the realm of matter, everything takes time. In the realm of mind, I can go, aha, and it's an instantaneous connection. I could be in a state of seemingly disconnect, and then I just like, bam, the switch is on. Now that's not about, I think what he's talking about is the matter,
Yeah.
not the mind here.
Well, even that is within but an instant. But they're trying to measure thoughts and they're measuring, neural communication, all those things in time. But it's part of the thing I think is for the matter. You're exactly right. As you're going out to help people, everything takes time. And you
Yeah.
gotta honor that. And partly from the intellectual to the metaphysical, I think this works towards more the intellectual. Wouldn't you will you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read the next one.
And also when you mention that, listen, you may not feel the matter change right now, but when you have this in your being, it elicits confidence, which gets passed on to the patient. Don't worry about it right now. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine. We were talking about so many people are coming in now with they say the rhinovirus. I'm like, that's a cold, you realize. And uh, and then they come in, I see them on Monday, and they come back on Wednesday. My daughter's so much better. And I'm like, thank God, it was a cold, 3 days. You're gonna feel better, right? That's the way it works. We're sort of forgetting those things. But yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's awesome. People are amazing. The amount of intelligence in matter, principle number 7. The amount of intelligence for any given unit of matter is always 100% and is always proportional to its requirements. It doesn't, I mean, that means it doesn't use any more energy than is necessary for function. Is that what you would say?
Isn't that cool?
That is cool. That's balance, right? It's yin and yang. That's ease. Is the way I see that. There are any number of instances in the existence of matter which prove that it has the requisite amount of attention from the creator. So he mentions God quite a bit in this. The requisite amount is enough and no more. It is. Therefore, These are all commas here, okay? It is, comma, therefore, comma, the perfect amount. 100%. The
Wow.
amount, amount in quotes means perfection, and that is what is needed for the maintenance of the unit as it is. No power less than the maintenance, no power less than the creator could deprive a unit of matter of its share of intelligence. But the limitations of matter may prevent the expression of that intelligence. The amount that one unit has may be less than that which another unit has, but it always has 100% for that particular unit. This holds true in both organic and inorganic matter.
Wow, I love that.
It's really it's poetry in a way to be succinct in what he's saying, like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. It's well written and well said. And I applaud that. Um, it's divine perfection again, the architect, the creator. To
Yes.
me, he's saying creator as the omnipotent God, right?
Beautiful. Wow, beautiful. Hey,
The
Robert, is that your third eye shining or is that a flashlight on your head? It looks like your third eye is like really putting out.
We're knocking out some powerful stuff tonight.
Regarding this perfection in nature, today I was sitting in the sun and I heard a woodpecker. And I thought about the woodpecker. He pecks and the insects are there. There's no real effort, but he does have to peck. And then I just thought about how wonderful everything like the sun being not too far, not too close. And then I just got blown away at how everything, like we're reading about perfection and proportional, everything is working perfectly to such a degree that it blows my mind.
They talk about the ratio of matter, the mass of a supermassive black hole, and the ratios are all the same to the size proportional to the mass throughout all the galaxies. How does that happen? And all that Pasquale would say, all that out there is a projection from within here,
Wow.
right? So you think about all that amazement out there is even more amazing within. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Who knows? I mean, it's so, I love it that they lay it out and give it to the student and say, hey, you're about to graduate. This is the senior text. You should know this, be able to articulate it, understand it in different ways, and be able to communicate it to the public, right? This is a textbook. Am I right? You
Well, it
know?
has to come from an experience of it, though. It's not just an intellectual, oh, I understand this intellectually. I believe there's that element of like being excited about it because it's exciting. Eh,
and, and you get it out of his writing. He's excited about it. There's parts in here he say, look at it as a little child. Think how amazing it is, And the very
Yeah.
first one in what he talked about in the chiropractic, in principle number one, see it as a child like looking at a picture and looking behind it to see if they're behind there. Like, as you're seeing it with the first time in just absolute amazement. So I really love reading Stevenson's, if you can't tell. The function of intelligence, principle number 8. The function of intelligence is to create force. Whoa. Everything in the universe has a purpose. That purpose is its function. Intelligence is in the universe. Therefore, it has a function. It is evident that function of intelligence is to think. Thinking is the origin of force. Creating is the thinking or unfolding of thoughts. The force of thought is the greatest of all forces. If it is really the fundamental of all energies, all dynamics.
Wow.
Force, intelligence. Force of thought is the greatest of all forces.
Yes.
It is really the fundamental of all energies, of all dynamics. Is he saying we wouldn't be created without some type of thought from the creator? Right? It's another way to
I
say
think
it
you're
from
right.
his, what another way of him saying the creator, you're special. You've been created by thought, not by mistake, you know? I think it's absolutely
Are
wonderful.
these forces physical?
Some,
I don't think these forces are, maybe that's a little bit physical, but
it's it's the intelligence is manifested in the material by thought. So those aren't thoughts you can see, but thoughts becoming things. As Pasquale always said, thoughts are things. And Sisyphus said the same thing. Sisyphus too. That's what I got out of that section. All right. Mind. Mind is the activity of innate intelligence in the brain as an organ. Okay, this isn't the principles. Okay. This is his writings after them. The principles don't go, they go in order, but there's this other part, and this is all good stuff too. So I'm going to continue, okay? Mind is the activity of innate intelligence in the brain as an organ, the introduction of thought into matter via the brain. Chiropractic maintains that innate intelligence is the power which governs the body, is the ego itself. Interesting. Huh. You and your innate intelligence, and your innate intelligence is you. Let me read that again. You are your innate intelligence, and your innate intelligence is you. If you claim that you are a master of your innate, that is a mistake assumption of values and is the same as innate belittling herself. Surely innate would never do this. But when it appears that she does, it is a misexpression. Mind is the term applied to what intelligence does when it is at work. Innate mind and educated mind are terms used to indicate the kind of work being done. When innate does not work, there is no mind. What do you think he's talking about here? He's getting into it. The next one starts to explain it. Let's compare a musician to the power, this instrument to the brain, and the music to mind. When the musician plays on his instrument as an organ of expression, then there is music. When the musician ceases playing, there is no more music expressed. That's a good analogy. I like that parallel. In chiropractic, the term mind is considered a little differently than it is in physiology. In physiology, one mind is considered in two divisions, conscious and subconscious, with no definite division between the two. Psychology considers that the mind is the governing intellect and implies that while the subconscious mind is your ego, is really the master. We gather from the teachings of psychology, which is based upon the materialistic view that one can willfully govern his own destinies, even to the extent of healing. Chiropractic did not use the term conscious mind and subconscious mind at all, for there is absolutely no application with these terms to anything chiropractic. I like that delineation. Chiropractic philosophy is not a study of psychology any more than it is of chemistry or physics. Chiropractic recognizes and honors all the findings of the physiologist as it does that of the physicist. It makes use of these findings as it does these of the physicist and agrees with psychology. It's a lot of shits in there. As long as it It's consistent with chiropractic. In other words, there is a chiropractic uh, a psychology, which is the study of the mind. All the psychology that is considered in chiropractic can be studied under the division called mental, the third step of the cycle. I think he's talking about the normal complete cycle. All right, before I read innate mind, how you guys feeling with all that? Any insights?
I like going back, psychology. Uh, when you try to govern innate, there that now you got it and innate rather than you are innate.
Mhm.
You're not trying to control innate. You are innate.
Now, he's also making a distinction about ego. And this was around the time, was it Sigmund Freud with ego? And I could be wrong, but around this time, around the turn of the century, right? So he's not using that term lightly. Like we throw it around left and right
I think
nowadays.
that, yeah, his interpretation of ego is different.
It's the true understanding of ego is where he's talking about from the science of the time in psychiatry.
Yeah,
Okay. We throw it around kind of left and right. And most of the time, people are talking about self-esteem.
yeah,
And they're not really talking about ego.
no,
We're using it incorrectly very
yeah, I
often.
agree. It's a different interpretation.
Absolutely. Shall I move forward?
Yeah.
Innate mind. We're on page 242. Innate mind is the activity of innate intelligence in the innate brain as an organ. The product of this activity is innate thought or mental force, the act or business of assembling forces in innate brain. Even when she uses educated brain, she first uses innate brain. If innate ceased giving attention to a tissue cell one single instant, that tissue cell would either act in accordantly, be poisoned, or be bodily injured. All of these dangers being made are by the unadapted universal forces present in all matter. So this is where he's first time really talking about universal forces
Yeah,
being destructive.
right.
This action is given in the form of mental impulses, which are adapted forces to cause the tissue cell to act in an adaptive manner and thus escape or overcome the dangers, however slight. Therefore, the innate brain must be used every instant by innate, and consequently, innate mind is in existence at all times. If the musician plays all the time, there will be music all the time.
Hmm.
Innate brain doesn't take a rest. It's on the job 247, constantly working in harmony as best it can. The next part's educated mind. The educated has a time limit, I think. Educated mind. Educated mind is the activity of innate intelligence in the educated brain as an organ. The product of this activity is educated thoughts, such as reasoning, will, memory, etc. Innate controls the functions of the voluntary organs via the educated brain. Educated thoughts are mostly an adaptation to things external to the body. So, he's going through a lot of innate understanding. I'll continue to read this. Educated thoughts are never outwardly expressed until innate does it through innate brain. For instance, one may have a thought, but unable to express it vocally. If innate is unable to operate the organ of speech owing to interference with transmission of mental impulses, if in any case we should not know how to operate the organ of speech, even though we can will them to act. The educated thoughts may be kept within the brain and as chiropractic says, expressed there, but which psychologists say make a physiological change in the tissue of the brain, We see no reason why we should not agree with this theory. So what he's saying, we're agreeing with the science of the time, right? Of neuro, there's the cat joining us. New neural pathways, the brain growing. They're doing this type of neuroscience at this time in the 1920s. And, they're saying, well, we agree with the science of the time. It's excellent. Good information, really, right? In the last, excuse me, my voice is going soon. But in the last analysis, all educated thoughts, education will be memory, reasoning, etc., are for the adaptation to things external to the body. They are for welfare, comfort, betterment, and safety to the body. Though we sit down in an easy chair and read a book, go to a show, these, after all, are processes of education which are for more competent adaptations to environment. The fact that it may give us pleasure does not distract from the fact for successful adaptations always give pleasure. It is a natural physiological law. So he's really, in a way, giving a little Freudian stuff that we're always working towards pleasure. The reason that man ranks the highest among living things is because he possesses an organ, that class of adaptations more highly developed than those of others. Voluntary movements are those caused by innate, which conform to or are influenced by the number of times that movement has been made before. In other words, it is an educated movement, and its efficiency is dependent upon experience in doing that thing. I talked to a machinist today, and we talked about chiropractic, an accomplished machinist. He just retired, just trained a new greenhorn to do his job. His job literally takes twice as long because he doesn't have the experience. Same thing in chiropractic, right? It doesn't take forever when you know what you're doing. The term voluntary has references to the will. Uh, okay. Voluntary movements are those educatedly will do. Analyze Analyzation shows us that this is innate adapting to move to synthetic environment, to a group of stored up precepts instead of immediately fresh ones. For example, we decide to take a walk. The decision comes from no outside influence, but was born of a group of feelings or thoughts which we had experienced before. We don't use the term voluntary or involuntary because that implies that something might be involuntary to innate intelligence, which is impossible. It's a mouthful. But what he's talking about, I really think is hey, at the end, innate intelligence, everything is possible with innate intelligence. Innate adapting to moving synthetic environment. Move a synthetic environment to a group of stored precepts. Oh, of having, do we have free will? Where you say, I want to go to a walk, I want to watch the sunset on my dock, on your beautiful water back there, Steve. Go out to the beach and watch the sunset is stored in us from things that brought us joy in
Yeah.
the past. He's doing a little bit of Freudian stuff, really, but that's interesting. I have in here, this is where we stop, okay? And we pick up back again at 9 because he just talks about mental insanity and there's some other things. So we do a little bit of skipping. We're going to
At
start.
9 or not philosophy of education, huh?
Nope, we're going to skip that. These are our notes from the last time as well. And we skipped to 250. And it's starting on principle 9 now at this part. Because some of that stuff, it's a little bit dragged out about it's old psychology and psychiatry and that type of thing. So tonight we're going to call it a little bit early, guys, if you don't mind. Okay.
Okay, man. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks for posting it. You guys have a good night. I'm heading to bed early.